You're listening to Devotions with Pastor Daniel Williams, taken from the Redemption Church YouTube channel.
Well, today's devotional, I want to remind you an important truth, that God is at work. He's at work and darkness will not overcome. Even in horrible, dark situations, God is moving. He is working and he is going to overcome these situations. This is so important for us to understand. 1 John 1:5 says, the light shines in darkness and the darkness has not overcome it. And we need these reminders continually, even daily, moment by moment. I think oftentimes we practically forget this wonderful truth because we're humans and we're surrounded by darkness, by sin, by brokenness all around us. Our reality, our life consists of dark things. And it could be daunting. It could be depressing even thinking about those things. Even the Apostle Paul acknowledges this fact that we're in this life where we don't see everything clearly and it's dim and it's dark. 1 Corinthians 13:12 says, and now we see in the mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know. Listen, you and I live in brokenness and there are beautiful things in this world, but there's also brokenness and we won't see God's full reign and light and heaven until he comes again. In Isaiah 60, it talks about the beautiful light of God and living in that light and the pleasures of that light. But yet we only get glimpses of that right now because we live in this already, but not yet. We are already saved. God is working, but yet he's not ruling and reigning completely until he makes a new heavens and new earth. This is not our heaven. It's not our home. And now we have to have faith, right? We live by faith, not by sight. And so faith in God is to know that he is still working in our lives and he is overcoming darkness. And this faith isn't just a blind faith. God has displayed to us his glory and his power. And he's done this over and over again. I mean, we should have been reminded of this during the Advent season in our series and thinking about, I'm reminded how God is Emmanuel. He's with us. He's come down. And so he is with us in this broken world, in the dark things around. John would say that the word became flesh and dwelt among us. Light came into darkness. And we see Jesus not only came, but he had victory because he was victorious on the cross, conquering sin, death, and Satan on the cross and rising again. Colossians 2:15 reminds us of this. He disarmed, speaking of Jesus, the rulers and the authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them in him. And so God gave us victory in Christ, and we're to look to Christ by faith in this world to see God move and work. And the Holy Spirit is active and he's moving, and Jesus and the work on the cross should remind us that God is moving, that he's active, and he does things differently. He may not do things our way, but he does things even when we don't feel it, even when we don't see it. He is moving. And so I hope that as you experience God's love, you're reminded that light can overcome darkness. He has saved us, and he is going to accomplish his work here on earth. And we can experience his presence, his power in our lives right now. Colossians 1:13 and 14 says, he has delivered us from the dominion of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. We should be reminded by our own salvation that God is actively working, because he's actively working in your life. He's actively working in my life. This is amazing. And what reminded me of this fact that light overcomes darkness and God is always moving is as I've been reading through the book of Ezekiel. Yes, I'm still reading it. It's a great study for me. It's an Old Testament prophet who was first a priest before he was a prophet. And he was serving God faithfully in a time when the nation was not faithful. They weren't following God. It was very dark. There was brokenness. There was sin. He had to have a lot of faith. There was this king, and forgive me, I don't know how to necessarily pronounce it, Jehoiachin, Jehoiakim. I'm going with Jehoiakim. But he was the king at the time in an evil time. It's 2 Kings chapter 24. And we read at the end of 2 Kings, there was a lot of kings in the nation of Judah, the nation of Israel. Man, they were bad, bad, bad. Okay, there's a good king. Now it's bad, bad, bad. Okay, it's a good king. Now it's bad, 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 bad. Right? It was so dark that God actually judged the nation in the time of Ezekiel, sending the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, to come and seize Israel. And so this was a depressing, dark, sinful time that Ezekiel lived in, and yet God uses Ezekiel. 2 Kings 24 verse 12 says, Jehoiachin, the king of Judah, gave himself up to the king of Babylon. Himself and his mother and his servants and all his officials and his palace officials, the king of Babylon took him prisoner in the 8th year of his reign. This was a big deal. It seemed like darkness was overcoming God's chosen people. It was overcoming light. In fact, so much so, another prophet, Habakkuk, questioned God. He struggled with this and asking God, well, how could you use the Babylonian kingdom, Nebuchadnezzar, these evil people to judge us? Darkness must be winning. Because it was a full takeover. It says his mom, his servants, the guards, everyone was being captive and taken. In fact, there's another book of the Bible, Daniel, his friends, him and were taken by Nebuchadnezzar as well. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These people you can read about in Daniel, in Jeremiah, in Habakkuk, in Ezekiel. It was a very dark time in 2 Kings chapter 24, and it seemed like God was not moving, that he was not working, that darkness was overcoming. And I'm sure there are times in your life when you believe that too. When it does seem, and it is harsh, and God is allowing us to have this brokenness in our lives, this sin, whether it be consequences or people transgress against us because we don't live in heaven. We don't live in this perfect world. And this is the situation that Ezekiel was in. But this is the reminder that I want to remind you today. God was still working in his time, and he's still working in our time. Because in the context of this dark situation, Ezekiel, this priest, God's anointed one, to point people to Jesus, and they were to point to Jesus, people to the Messiah, to God himself. He gets another calling to be a prophet for the nation. Now, Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1 through 3, it reads this. In the 13th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the exiles by the Chebar canal, the heavens were open and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin, remember that king that I can't pronounce. The word of the Lord came to Ezekiel, the priest, the son of Buzi, and the land of the Chaldeans, which Chaldeans is another word for the empire of Babylon, by the Chebar canal, and the hand of the Lord was upon him there. Now, in this passage, here's something amazing. We see God show up. He shows up. It's tragic. There's sin. There's darkness. There's consequences for sin. It's broke. It's all messed up. And God, in the midst of it, shows up. Ezekiel says it was the 13th year, in the 4th month, and the 5th day. Like, he's very specific that God showed up in the specific dark time. He says it was among the exiles, and I saw the visions of God. In the midst of the darkness, in the midst of the sin, in the midst of the brokenness, he saw visions of God. He saw God move. God opened his eyes to this reality. May God open our eyes to the reality that he is moving, that there is vision, that he is active even in the midst of hard situations. He says it was the first it was the 13th year, it was the 4th month. It was a specific day. It was in the dark situation that God worked in Ezekiel's life. And in verse 3, it says, the hand of the Lord was upon me there. I want to remind you, the hand of the Lord is upon you no matter where you go. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Be reminded today that no matter what dark situation you're in and you face, you can see God work and move. You can trust God. God is actively moving. This isn't heaven. This isn't the final say of the situation. Darkness will not overcome. And even in darkness, God, his light, will overcome. He is working for our good, as Romans 8:28 tells us, and we can trust that he is moving and working. Our God is the God that redeems. And in the midst of Ezekiel's tragic moment, in the midst of darkness, God showed up. May God show up in your darkness, in your life, in this season. You know, we're sort of in a time in the new year coming up to get vision, to seek God. Man, may he show up. May we ask God to give us eyes to see, ears to hear, a heart to see the evidences of his grace in our life. And so I just pray that this is a simple reminder for you that God works in the midst of darkness. Darkness will not overcome. The light, God who is light, shines bright. He is Emmanuel. He is God with us. And in the midst of Ezekiel's life, he showed up. If you call upon the name of the Lord, you will be saved. God will show up on your behalf and he will work. And so I pray that God would grant you the faith, the trust, to trust him in whatever season you're in, and that he would open your eyes to show you he is working, he is moving, and may you be reminded today that he works in dark places. Don't give up. Overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony. May you go to Jesus. May you see the cross and know that he not only died but rose again. And may you experience that so you can tell others of this good news that there is light. God has come. Emmanuel. He is working and he is moving. God bless you guys, and we'll see you on the next devotional video.